I just, I just sent her that, Yanina, so hopefully she will do that. Yeah, I know.
Not a problem.
Now you guys have enough to do right this week, right?
Rock the vote. Get out and vote. Is this going to be on our thing? Everybody get out and vote. Carol, just a little, I have some nits about this draft healthy ecosystem survey. I don't think they're worthy necessarily of being, a couple of things are worthy of being discussed, but if I have some nits, should I just email them? I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to do this before.
Sorry, you said, Jen, hold on, you said survey. Did you mean ordinance?
I said healthy ecosystem. Yeah, I said survey. I meant ordinance. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just, so what I'm thinking we'll do is we definitely should talk about anything substantive. I don't think we should need to go through all the preference.
And if we vote, will it be with those few little editorial nits that get added? Is that what the motion will be?
I think you should mention whatever you have so everybody can decide whether or not it's nits to them or important.
Okay. We will try. Can't start your video.
Bill says unable to start.
Oh, look at that. I can see it when I do video settings, which would suggest there's nothing wrong with my camera. I don't know.
It says, mine says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Yeah, that's what this is the technical difficulties we're having in a minute.
Yeah, I have the same thing.
So I guess my question is, I'll give it a couple more minutes and then we'll just do it without seeing each other. This goes from bad to worse. Pretty soon we're going to have to do it in sign language.
Just do it telepathically.
Exactly.
I love that.
Touch finger to the screen.
Either and or is good. This stuff happens. I mean, it's just crazy. Let me try again. Nope. Do you want to make someone else the co-host and see if they can? Because it says your host has stopped. I'm just trying to problem solve. I'm sorry, you may not need my help. Yeah, interestingly, it says you are in a practice session. I don't know what that's about. Ah, okay.
So the only issue, fellow commission members, is that I was hoping to screen share the document, which would have made discussion easier. Okay.
Oh. Yeah,
Oh,
I
good.
see it.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Okay, that's good. Do you see Karen Hall waiting by any chance? She sent me a question last week about.
Maybe stop sharing, Carol, just for now.
Sure, I can do that. Okay.
Ooh, I see 10 participants. Okay.
Yeah, let me send her a text. And now here is the problem. So when I screen share, I do not have any of the controls. How do I get, can you, well, maybe it's up here.
Oh, stop the screen share.
Yeah, wait a minute. It went to the top of my screen. Okay, so I'm stopping the share. Okay. Okay, she said she did not receive a link for the meeting, so let me give her the same instructions we gave you.
Yeah, I didn't get a link either.
Little typo. Click on the, I meant to type general link and it says gender link. Not good. So Dave, what do you think? Should we just go ahead? Okay. You have 5 attendees. Yeah, let me just let the commission know who's here. We have Michael Dunlay and Palmer Higgins, who are frequent flyers. We have a Leslie, a John, and a Bob. That's all I know. Okay, so, yep. Let me just see if we can get Karen in here before we start, seeing as the first item is a vote on the minutes.
Looks like I didn't need to put a new shirt on after all.
Well, I'm really glad because I have realized I had stains on my t-shirt, so this is probably all my fault. All right, let's go. Does everybody agree we should start? And hopefully Karen will join us.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so on the agenda, the first one is to vote to accept the minutes for the May 9th meeting. Is anybody, I will put that as a motion. Should we vote to accept? Any discussion on that?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written. Jennifer?
Who wants to second?
Second. Oh,
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
aye.
Okay, done. Okay, so update on current work. Steve, you want to give the folks who weren't here a little bit of highlight on our, well, the folk who wasn't here, I guess, wasn't our highlight on our Saturday adventure?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it took a while to get this arranged because of the approvals we had to get from the state EPA and other groups. So we ended up doing this last Saturday from 9 to 12. and there were 6 people actually. And I was really surprised. Everybody was a hard worker and hauling the stuff out of there. So we got a lot done. And the town brought a dump truck and left it parked there. So we filled that up. And then I brought my 6x12 landscape trailer along and we filled that up, heaping also. And one of the good things about it was that many members of the public walked by, and the neighbors we talked to, we got a lot of interest and people asking, what they can do. So I think it's going to be a good long-term education thing too. That's all I had.
And just for those who were not there, the predominant species that was systematically eradicated was?
I would say it was bittersweet. Asian bittersweet was the dominant invasive, although there were some really huge bush honeysuckles also.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of Russian olives.
Steve, you can probably get your video up. I think, and Robin as well. Have you done yours? Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and I think we have permanent signs up there now. So obviously that's going to get a lot of traffic, and we will hopefully get some recognition for it.
The lilacs can fill back out now. They were sort of swallowed. Why am I so blurry?
No, but it looks
And
nice.
as for recognition, thank you for being there. I don't even know how it missed my radar, but so goes these months for me. So I really appreciate you guys representing, and yeah.
We saved you some.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like the first bite of the apple, as they say.
Well, there is also a longer term thing, like the guy, Mr. Mix, who lives adjacent to the path, wants to take the bittersweet out on his side, and he said he's going to do that and get the permits and replace it with native. And then I think Robin talked with him quite a bit about types of things he could put in. And
I was thinking about that, and I was just wondering, if it has to be native. I was going through the list of natives, and the lilacs do pretty well down there, and they would form a screen. And even though they're not native, I'd say they're, pretty. We have them on one side, and they are kind of nice. And I was thinking about that, as opposed to finding, obviously they do all right there. They're in sand, covered in invasive species and still alive. So I did give that some thought. I thought, there are a lot of natives, but I'm not sure they would do as well as the lilacs do down there. So I don't know if that's up for discussion at all, or if I should just continue on with native.
no, that's a good idea.
They do well. They're nice. Everyone likes them.
I'm not sure whether they maybe are native. They've
They seem,
certainly
they're everywhere.
been around for at least 200 years.
I
Right.
was gonna say they're as close to native as they can be, is without being native.
Well, and I think they live, and if something happens, they can be cut to the ground and they come back. I mean, they're pretty tough. A lot of those native plants that you buy from the nursery, they're very expensive. And, even though they say for shoreland zone, I mean, it's a pretty tough spot right there.
Yeah.
Excuse me for 1 second. Jen, would you mind doing me a favor and sending Karen, go online and send her the general link off the website page? She doesn't seem to think that works either, but
Yeah, I'll text it to her and then email it. Yeah.
thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, I personally like that idea. So maybe that's a good.
Yeah,
Sorry, my only wondering is around something like a blueberry, something that's a food, forest garden idea, but I don't know. So I defer to you all, the experts, especially Robin, in terms of this is your business. So
typically blueberries like kind of peaty soil, and that is like sandy, and it would require probably a lot of watering at that spot, for blueberries, and they can get burned pretty good, and they take forever to grow. That's the only. But maybe we could mix some in, but like I said, it's so sandy there that he would be having to water that a lot. I mean, that's my
Okay.
experience. But we could. I mean, I have native blueberries all around here, high bush ones, but again, it's peat for a foot and then sand here. So,
Okay.
but I can mention that.
I was just thinking about the blueberry plains, which
Right.
it seems awfully sandy down there, but I defer.
It is sandy, but it's also not salt sandy. You don't usually see blueberries right. I mean, I haven't seen any growing right on the ocean at all, I don't think. So, but we could try it. They take a long time to grow.
Yeah, okay. No worries.
Okay, anything more on that? Kennebunk River Restoration Project, as I think I told you, we have our brochure printed. There are actually 2 events that the rest of the committee in Kennebunk is doing this weekend, having to do with the Kennebunkport, Kennebunk Merit launch, which is sort of a chamber event. And what else is happening? And I'm working with the KCT, with Robin's help, to do a camp event where they will be planting something on the river there, right by the dock, there's a place that's pretty bleak looking. And I started working with Isaac on that. And so that's going on pretty well. We also had a meeting with Arundel last week, which was kind of cool because we had 3 towns in one room actually talking, about what can be done to help restore the river. So that's that. So next to the business is the ordinance. And I'd like to suggest that we focus our discussion on the actual meat of it, which starts in section 4, pesticide and fertilizer application registration, as opposed to if people have comments on the introduction and the definitions and the fantastic chart that Steve has put together. Maybe we could send those later in email and do a final email vote on any changes, which is what we should be doing anyway. Is that okay with folks? I mean, if we have time, we can go back to it, but.
Yeah, it's okay.
Anybody against it? Robin, you okay?
No.
Okay. All right. So in that case, I think I'll put it up on the screen and we'll just go around the room, so to speak, and people can say if they have any questions or suggestions or thoughts. Now I have to find.
Is there anything you want to say by way of context in terms of, why we set, sort of the process for settling on this, or do you think it's self-explanatory and most people are aware of the survey, et cetera? And
yeah, at the last meeting, we went over the survey that we had, which, as Steve mentioned in his introduction, really mirrored what we saw from comprehensive plan survey 4 years ago, which was that a significant, like 70 to 80% of people have concerns and are interested in seeing the town do something. Now, the question, of course, always is, what is that something? And the devil's in the details, as they always say. So I think we decided that this would be a good place to start so we could get a sense of exactly how much pesticide and fertilizer is being put on. And it will also be a benchmark if we move forward to strengthen this ordinance in years to come. We'll be able to see if that is doing anything, if it's reducing the amount of pesticide and fertilizers put on the town, because that is the goal, to reduce the amount that is administered. Does anybody want to add to that?
good.
Well, I'd like to also say that this is titled Phase 1. And
Yep.
so what we're trying to do here is something that is pretty straightforward. and likely not to be too controversial and write up. The main thing is the reporting in the phase one.
Right. Yeah, and I think at the end you say that based on what we see, this could be the basis for additional regulation in years in the future. So my goal with this just is going to be, as I've always said, I'd like to have something that will pass, because I think having something not passed always sends a bad message. And number two, I'd like to make it as simple as possible for everybody involved. So that's where my comments will be coming from. So I didn't have any particular comments on section 4, except for a couple of, minor things that I can send to Steve in email.
Agreed.
Robin?
Agreed.
Well, that was easy. Number 5, moving up, pesticide and fertilizer application reporting. Why don't you guys, I do have a couple comments here. Does somebody else want to start?
Well, maybe I could explain a couple of things in this breaking up of the town into 4 categories, 4 sections, seems to be typically done in other town ordinances, so that you can get a general idea of what's being applied in the area around you. So it's really 2 types of reporting. One is providing the specific addresses of where the application took place, and also whether it's in one of these sectors. And these are just sort of arbitrarily come up with, one is the northwest of the town, another one the southeast, and so on and so forth.
Would it be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And what is being requested is for these specific locations, as well as the 4 quadrants, the date of application, the EPA registration number, and so on and so forth. The specific addresses, dates of application, and the name of the product, the weight and or square footage, or however it's figured, that was applied. And we've had a lot of preliminary discussions about we don't want to make a lot of extra work for ourselves. And some other towns that have proposed something like this have had it come in and just as a filled out form, which makes it a lot of work for somebody to have to enter it electronically somewhere. So what we're going to do is to have a standard like Excel or other spreadsheet with different columns and so on. So it's just to be filled in that way. And then when the electronic form comes, we can just, from several groups, we can just combine them together into one large database. So that's the idea of that. And then the last paragraph, we have found a lot of interest of just individual homeowners who are doing their own applications, and they want to do the right thing and they want to cooperate and so on. And so we're going to make this spreadsheet available to individual residences who can fill out their information on a volunteer basis and send it to us. Well, that's kind of an overview.
Mm-hmm.
So my question, in terms of the mapping thing, that was one of my questions. Would it be, I'm not sure I understand, I guess that just makes it easier to see at a glance over time where it's mostly happening. Does it make sense to try to tie that to our current zoning in any way?
Yeah, I was thinking of that. I think this aspect of it could be better defined. for example, you could have shoreline zones, and as you mentioned, different aspects of the zoning or the town maps, because there's a lot of shoreline, and we don't want stuff going into the waters and harming the lobsters and so on.
Right, so that's an area that would be of most concern, and also the mapping already exists on it.
Yeah.
Pretty easily, which is.
So is shoreline zone considered 250 feet and closer? Is that?
Good question.
I think that's what the setbacks are, but I wasn't sure. I think that's what, identifies.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in the shoreland zone, but like say, Ocean Woods is part in the shoreland zone, part in Goose Rock zone, and that's because that front part is 250 feet or less to the marsh. I believe that's what the shoreland zone is.
And I know, and I noticed further along, Steve, you have no fertilizer shall be applied within 250 feet of any marsh wetland law. So I mean, my question on that was, does that conform to current law? So that's like the same question.
Right.
You mean the law about the shore, defining the shoreline zone?
Yes, exactly. So did you say 250 feet because that is the shoreline zone?
Yeah, that would have to be looked at a little more carefully, because currently there's a lot of houses right basically on the beach, certainly within 250 feet of the high tide area. And it would seem to me like they would all come under the shoreline zone in that definition.
Yeah. Robin, was that you who were going to say something?
No, I was just, when I did the pool survey a year ago, there was the assessor's map there are maps that we could just agree to take a look at some of these existing maps so that we have a guideline and we can sort of draw our little quadrants through that. So I was just taking a look as you were talking, Steve, on, what maps might be the most helpful, and whether it's divvying it up according to shoreline or otherwise, assessor's maps, et cetera. We might just say this piece, if it's of interest to us, we might just say, let's take a look at this specifically so that it's reasonable in terms of how this particular town is, and how we're looking at these reports according to geography, geographic templates or current things. I'm just still looking. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get my.
Well, maybe in Kennebunkport,
hold on for 1
a
second.
reasonable way to do it is to have only two, not have four, but just have two different zones. One is the shoreland zone as defined on the maps, and the other is not the shoreland zone.
So I think the shoreland is 250 feet, but like, what about wetlands? I think you can't build within 75 feet of a wetland, so that's a little different. You know what I mean? Would that just fall in the other category?
Yeah.
No, I think it should be all, however, wetland, shoreland, anything that's near any type of water body, be it a vernal pool or the ocean or a river.
So there is
Gang, hold on for a second. I need Dave. Karen is here. Could you upgrade her?
I think she is.
She's got her hand up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She
Sorry.
needs to be up to a panelist.
I think the fact that she's on screen might help. I don't know.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. All right.
I can't see the whole group, and I missed a very important part of the meeting, so I was not given a link.
I think that happened to you before too, didn't it?
Well, I would have thought that it would have been rectified after the first time.
I didn't have a link either. I had to go on the general and then get linked in somehow. Just didn't come across.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
I think you can always just go on the general and then they can buzz you in.
Anyway, Karen has her hand up.
Well, Karen, you don't need to have your hand up if you want to speak.
Well, I don't know. I'm removing the pin. Does that happen? How do I get my hand down?
Lower your hand. If you go back to where you raised it, you can lower it.
Oh, I pressed every button I could find, Jennifer,
Down-
so I don't
Down
know
at
how
the
I get-
bottom of the screen. if
Under raise hand, you can lower hand, I think.
There you go.
What I want to say is that the comprehensive plan has incredible watershed maps and what they call surface geology and aquifer maps. And I think it would behoove us to just take a moment and look at those maps. And then rather than just sort of dividing it into quadrants, we might use these maps as a way in which to report, which is what this portion is about, is reporting location. So there's been some really great work done by those folks on the comprehensive plan. And let's take a look at those maps and see how we might revise this particular area, specifically with regard to the reporting.
And you want to send that link out to everybody on the committee? And at the end of this meeting, we'll figure out how we're going to circle back.
Yep, happy to do so.
Thank you.
I do have a question, if I may ask.
Mhm.
Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
I missed, I think, an important part of this draft, and that is anyone near any kind of body of water at all can no longer use any treatments for anything. Is this how I read the draft, or is that incorrect?
That's it.
No, we don't address that for pesticides and herbicides. It's just reporting at this point.
Right. Basically, this is just asking the commercial applicators or I should say, requiring the commercial applicators to register and report on what and where they use, and requesting other entities to do such. That's really all we've got at this point.
I'm going to forward you just so you have the latest, Karen. I'll just forward this to you in your email. You may already have it, but just on the chance that you don't have the latest.
I have the latest draft.
Okay.
Yeah, we have not got to section 7 yet, which does actually say no fertilizer shall be applied within 250 feet of any marsh and so on.
And that's,
But that, we may not want to have that in the other stuff under that section.
Okay, so why don't we move through in order, and we'll get to that.
Okay.
All right, so where we are now is we are looking at number 5. I believe we're in agreement that we should have some reporting locations divided up as based on existing mapping. Jen's going to send that out to us, and we'll discuss who will take the lead on that and how we will get back together to discuss it. I mean, Jen, if you're interested, or perhaps in conjunction with Steve, in coming up with a recommendation, that would be good if you have time.
I can do that. I have not done a lot these last few days, so I can do that.
All right, terrific. Okay, so I don't think nobody else Robin, do you have any comments on this section?
No, I think, using maps would be, the best idea. I think that's a good idea myself. And I do know, because I have followed the comprehensive plan, there's a map for everything in this town, rare plants, you name it.
Yeah.
There's a map. So maybe look at the map first and then.
Yeah, but I really want to avoid dividing it up too into
Right.
too many categories. I kind of like just having the near a
Simple.
water body and not near a water body.
Okay, well, let's see what we come up with. I mean, I would say simpler is better for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I meant, like, you know, in an area with too close to a water body and other. So, two.
Which is the watershed, yeah. Mhm.
Because I think everywhere, almost in most areas of town, there is some kind of water body that's, you know, people are on. I mean,
Within
even
250 feet of everyone who lives in this town,
pretty close.
which
Except the very
is,
middle.
yes, that's my
Right.
point.
Right.
Um,
So you disagree with that, Karen?
Well, I'm going to wait until we get to section 7.
Yep.
That's, I think, an important thing to discuss.
Okay.
agreed. So I do want to, my own lack of knowledge, when you're talking about in pounds or gallons, that is the standard measurement that is used, and are the measurements that you're recommending here, Steve, for both the fertilizer and the pest and the pesticides, is that the same format that the state reporting is, so that folks could use, basically just flip it over to us as opposed to
Yeah, and it's actually similar wording as in other towns' ordinances.
Okay.
I found that in pounds, I believe, or tons. I think it came down to tons, actually.
Yikes.
I know.
Well, yeah,
I mean, it adds up.
well, if you total it over everything for the town.
So I had in the next to last paragraph, last two paragraphs, I had two things. You say to simplify the reporting, right, to simplify the reporting and also the analysis of the results by the town. I would think that we should do the analysis of the results, especially given that we have you on the commission, Steve.
Yeah, well, that's what the town includes its commissions, doesn't it?
That's a good point. Maybe we should say the town or its designee, as you said earlier.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. And then in the last paragraph, you referenced town residents, businesses, and government
Ooh,
entities.
You're breaking up there. You're breaking up there, Carol.
We didn't hear that.
I mean, talking about besides an underscore. Shoot. Are we requesting that the town itself fill out the Excel spreadsheet? And is there any other entity besides the town who you were referring to there? Did you get that?
Oh, well, it's individual property owners and businesses and government entities. So yeah, the town, I think you sent a communication to Chris Simeone today, and he answered that they apply certain sort of pesticide for growth. The number from him for that.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear on that. Okay, does anybody have any other comments on section 5?
Do you really think that individual property owners will be filling out this Excel sheet voluntarily? And if so, I mean, if not, how do we police that, whether or not it's being done? I mean, how do we implement these provisions?
Some of us have talked to a lot of people who are really interested in this and are kind of gung-ho on it.
Yeah,
And
but I'm sure you haven't talked to many of the people who are not gung-ho on it, or I
talked to everybody, and there's several people who have said they're interested. But we don't want to not allow it, I don't think.
It's a voluntary, it says about requesting and it's voluntary. So I don't think that's, that it goes to the increasing the awareness of and participation and collaboration by everyone to try to reduce the use of these chemicals, and is not regulating it per se at this point in time.
Plus, I think that has value in that then we know what individuals are using, you know?
If they do it, and if they don't
Right.
do it, I don't think there's a policing action that we're,
No.
recommending.
No.
Just, if they want to. And if they don't, they don't. Okay.
Well.
Other thoughts or questions on 5? Mapping, dates. Okay, moving on to 6. Who wants to start?
Well, let me give an explanation first, and I will say that none of the other town ordinances address this, but it's sort of sticks in my craw because as a result of being sprayed on a few times, I finally, I always wanted to do something about it. And then I was told by a neighbor, oh, you can sign up on the pesticide notification registry. The state has it. And this was in January. I got all excited. I looked it up, printed it out and everything. And I discovered it doesn't go into effect until the next year, the next January of the year you fill it out. And I was thinking, well, that's really kind of dumb. That's not very helpful. So that's one aspect, is we'd like to have it, like if I don't want to have pesticides sprayed around me, I ought to be able to get on a list, in some reasonable amount of time. And then the other aspect of it is that they require you on the form to fill in the names and addresses of all the people within some distance of your house. And then apparently, so what is happening is the applicator is not really doing anything other than checking this list a year later. And what I'm trying to do is to make it more reasonable for a resident to get on the list where they're required notification if there's a pesticide application near them. And this allows that to happen.
Mhm.
I think that's a good idea.
My only comment on this was that I think the note maybe should not go right in here. It should maybe go somewhere else. It doesn't feel.
No, the note is only for you guys
Oh, okay.
who are reading this.
Okay. My other question was, I would like to not use the word imbalanced. Trying to be, just leave it as what.
Or I can think of a lot of other
I'm sure
adjectives.
you can.
No. Maybe I just state that the states, I can reword that,
Mhm. Absolutely, yeah, I would agree with that for sure. It's more the onus being on the homeowner versus the onus being on those who are applying the pesticides. And so you might see it, yeah, it's onerous. And so maybe there's a way to choose language that's different. My only thing on this section is it says failure to notify persons will result in a fine. This town has had a sort of interesting history around fines. And I think if not here, but for certain down in the next section, or section 8, I guess it is, we ought to have a recommendation around fines. In the case of a development down near Goose Rocks Beach in the woods, the fine for building a whole bunch of additional cottages was so minimal as to be one night's stay from an individual. So in other words, it had zero teeth. So I just think if at the point where in Kennebunk Beach, the signs say the fines for someone not picking up after their dog is $250, I think we have to sort of give it the teeth that it needs in order for it to have the effect we want. So I think it's going to be in section 8. I just bring it up here because it says failure to notify will result in a fine. So I'm just flagging.
I
the
kind of
fines.
agree
You might
that
want to weigh in.
maybe the fine should all be in one section. It would make it easier to balance, see if they all look right compared to each other.
Mhm. That would
Yeah.
make sense to me.
Yeah, I was counting on you all who have more experience in this to better define the procedure and the amount, and also there's an enforcement problem.
Mhm.
They don't have enough staff to even do what they've been doing for the town. They'd have to hire more people to, the code enforcement officer can't do this. They have other work that they have to do. The town will have to hire more people to administer and enforce these rules that we're putting into place that
Well,
I
that's
do
what-
not believe will be doable.
Well, that was one of my questions about this paragraph here. So I'm thinking I'm an applicator. Unless there's a program where I put in the name of my customer and then something automatically pops up that says 3 people in the neighborhood, sort of similar to however the state does it. I mean, if we could model this after the state and have them somehow use the same software, but I don't know how, I don't understand how somebody could actually make this work from an applicator standpoint. I agree that I would like to have it work.
And then
And you
whether
mean
the fine,
this whole section
and
6?
then-
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I
and
just
there
was
would be a
thinking,
fine, and then, recoup it from whomever has been fined.
So these fines are for professional applicators or for
Yes.
right?
Well, you could just assume that everybody's honest and is going to do the right thing.
Well, there's only
You
so
know,
many applicators, right? There's not 1,000 applicators in town,
Right.
so I guess someone would have to complain. Probably a lot of times people wouldn't not even, know, but there should be something in place, because there may be applicators that do everything correctly and there may be some that do not. And so,
I want to make sure I understand this. So I live where I live, and I suppose my neighbor calls, and I call the town, and I somehow online put my name on this automatic list, and an applicator gets a call from my next door neighbor who wants to have spraying done. They have to, every time they have a customer, they have to manually search a list by address. Or just
Yes,
run their eyes over it, essentially.
you have something to say.
that's right.
or they may have some kind of computer program that, they pull up the name of where they're going, and then the people that are, that's not really our responsibility, but it seems like they must be able to do that because they generate things with computers all the time. And so it would pull up the people that have to be notified and shoot it out. I would think that would be their, that's not impossible, I don't think.
Well, I think that's what they do now with the state
Right.
methodology. It's just that this is sort of short-circuiting the time required and making it less onerous for the resident.
Right.
So I'll volunteer to dig in the next few days to dig in and see how the state process works, how that works, and if there's anything that we could adopt that would make it less manual of a process. Is that okay?
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's not reinvent the wheel if we don't have to.
Right.
Okay. Okay, any other comments on section 6?
No, I do like the idea of putting all of the sort of violations in one section, but I don't know. Let's just give that some thought. Let's just,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, so restrictions, then we'll move to restrictions on fertilizer applications. Read this. Do you mean, Steve, first sentence, do you mean synthetic fertilizers?
Well, I originally thought about that would be the good wording, but then there's this whole municipal sludge thing that has occurred in the state, and everybody's hearing about when there's the pollutants in the municipal sludge. So, the whole thing that was pushed, oh, it's organic, but actually it isn't. And so that happens with other so-called organic fertilizers also. They could have trace amounts of pollutants in it.
I mean,
and on the second sentence there about insert websites here, the list of acceptable organic fertilizers, and there's a lot of information available on this. The main organic, forget what its acronym is, but they have lots of info. And then that 250 feet thing, I shouldn't have had that in there. I was just copying it from some other place. So I don't think we should get into that argument.
I mean, from a practice, Jen, you speak.
Oh, I did not at all mean to, I just was sort of putting the first sentence, the application of fertilizers is the proper wording shall be? Because I read it as is currently prohibited.
Yes.
So I think it needs to say the application of, if in fact it's something that is part of a new ordinance, it needs to say shall be prohibited.
Yeah, I guess they all should be shall be then.
Yeah, because I read it as, oh, wow, I didn't realize that.
I'm not actually sure about that, because if you look at it, I thought we were supposed to write this as if it's an existing ordinance, and then it would be accepted or not, and then it would go in as.
Yeah, maybe that's just me not understanding, but yeah. I mean, shall be does not say will be. It says, yeah, I don't know. I just note that for me, it caused confusion. That's all.
So moving down back to the 250 feet, and I just honestly, so that means no fertilizers, including organic fertilizers, in the shoreline zone, which kind of means that nobody can even have a vegetable garden in the shoreline zone.
Well, this is what I'm proposing. I shouldn't have had that in there. Sorry.
So
Are you removing it then? Because really, everyone is within 250 feet of some body of water in our town.
Right.
Everybody. So that means no one can use any type of fertilizer.
Okay. However, we have been circulating all kinds of information about how the lobsters are having problems and lots of other.
That's education, but this is going to be law. And it's not going to pass.
I already said I'm going to remove that sentence.
Okay, so that's, I think we can agree on that. Thank you, Steve.
But still, encouraging organic, is better than having synthetics running off into the ocean, I think.
I agree, and I think that definitely want to leave that second thing in there.
And then there's some standard practices, like you sweep the fertilizer off the impermeable surface, and this thing about within 24 hours an expected heavy rain,
Mhm.
because otherwise it just washes it off into the nearby water body.
I think that's a good thing.
Especially if it's dry.
Yeah, people should be thinking about those things. Plus they're wasting their fertilizer.
It's a tough one though for professional applicators, it'll be hard to, expect.
Predict the weather.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we have our apps, but still, but it's the best practice, obviously. So
Will there be a violation or a penalty if these things are not done, sweeping off of hard surfaces or doing it within 24 hours of an expected heavy rain?
I think leaving fertilizer on the street, I've seen that a lot. I've seen on Langsford Road,
But is that then a reportable and payable violation that would be picked up by the code officer? And yeah, I have a huge question about how this will be enforced.
Well, I just have an idea that if the applicators are forced, I've seen a lot of the applicators, they're young or they just started or they're like flinging grass seed and fertilizer everywhere. But I'm not sure how strict or how much of an impression they make on these people too. If you get it on the pavement, you have to, sweep it into the grass. I mean, I think it just puts a little more pressure on the applicators to make sure that the people working for them understand that, before you leave, you sweep it off, or God forbid, use the blower, but get it off the pavement because it just rolls, down the hill. I've seen on Langsford Road, the whole trail of it. So, I mean, that happens all the time. I don't know how much training they give in that area. I'm sure some are better than others. So just when they are looking at this, they're going to have to think, well, I need to tell my people to make sure that they sweep up when they're done or whatever they do.
I mean, I think I agree that part of this is an awareness thing and giving the people who are frustrated by some of the less than best practices that we've all seen,
Right.
give them the knowledge and, the chutzpah to say, please don't do this.
Right.
Even if we don't have at this point in time any kind of a penalty for it.
I mean, I bet a lot of people don't know that's a bad thing to do, is leave fertilizer on the driveway. I would guess, your average homeowner may not even know that's a big problem.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Here's the thing about enforcement, and I feel we need to really meet this where it is. Stating what the rules are gives the town the teeth to enforce something when and if and where they want to. Not stating it because of a lack of enforcement is not an acceptable stance on this kind of thing, because the bottom line is this then gives us, if and when we want to enforce it, the ability to enforce it. To not do something because we don't have the soldiers and the people to necessarily enforce it. I mean, research shows that a fair percentage, 60% or more, people will follow the rules as they are communicated. So that in and of itself is the detriment. And I think I wouldn't want us to get wrapped around the axle around enforcement, because in and of itself, specifying here's what the rules are has its own impact on the landscape. And it gives the power to the town if and when they would like to enforce it. That's my opinion.
I think you brought
I
up.
think it's crying wolf.
We got a
I think
hand up.
You brought up the point about the.
Can I just make a statement? So it is 7:01.
We have a hand up.
Yeah, we're going to be
It's not
taking.
public comment yet.
Not
Oh,
public
okay.
comment yet. So that's
Okay.
what I'm going to let the public know when we're going to be doing public comment.
Okay.
On my agenda, which I've naturally lost.
I,
It says,
is this not currently a public meeting?
yes, but you don't take public comment throughout a public meeting. So we talked about talking for an hour, and then we had 10 minutes of public comment. And then, so we probably need to give ourselves another 5 minutes and then open it up for 10 minutes of public comment. So let's keep talking, because we're really down to our thoughts on enforcement.
Okay, I had a comment on, I think Jennifer brought up the thing, wasn't it about the dog, picking up the dog poop? And $250. So how do they enforce that?
If they see someone, they do it, but obviously they don't.
Yeah, but who's they? Does a policeman have to see them?
Well, there were monitors, and that worked really well. And with COVID, they removed the monitors, but it was a community spirit kind of thing. Everyone.
We have monitors at the beach.
We do?
No,
Excellent place.
We
Not
have
a-
monitors. I am a dog monitor at the beach, and I don't have any power to levy a fine to someone who doesn't pick up their dog.
right. And I was told that those monitors are no longer in effect because of COVID. So I might be
I am a monitor, and we are starting on June 15th, as we have in the past. So
Right. So
But
my
I
point
don't
was simply
have-
that it's a
I don't write
community.
tickets.
No, of course not. It's of course not. And you are a supporting voice for making sure that people behave properly according to the rules. You say, "Hey, your dog." Everyone does. Other dog owners do. So it's more to the spirit of the rule and less about the literal enforcement. I think is enough to have the rules stand.
You have a lot of rules and no means of enforcing them. That means it's almost, I don't see any kind of, it doesn't make sense to me to have so many rules and yet no way to enforce these rules.
So my understanding, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, what we're asking these appliers, these applicators to do is simply report exactly what they already have to report to the state. Is that correct? Am I roughly right there?
They don't break it down by location and time.
Okay, so they report it in bulk. They already have a responsibility to report it in bulk. I'm just saying bulk as a word. I don't know if that's the right word, but okay. So, I mean, is the state enforcing it? I don't know. Who knows? Let's ask that question.
Well, I mean, I guess I want to go back to what Karen said. So the implication is that unless any ordinance we have requires the town to hire someone to enforce it, or unless they find they can defer some things that are being done in order to enforce that, you don't think that we should have an ordinance. Is that what you're saying, in effect?
I'm saying before we bring this out for a vote, we need to answer the very question about that very subject. Yes, you can't have a law and have no enforcement of that law. It's like telling people don't drink and drive, but nobody checks your whatever they do, breathalyzer. I'm not sure. I've never had it done, but I mean, it makes the law laughable
Well, I think
because
there have been
it's not being enforced.
There's been discussions actually in this year's select board meeting about things that aren't enforced in terms of parking, let's say.
Right.
And that was a recent discussion, and there was some frustration that it should be enforced, and it's enforced on an intermittent basis, I would say. And I'll bet there's a lot of things in our current laws in Kennebunkport that are enforced only on an intermittent basis, just because of resources or whatever. So I guess I'm more on the side of what, not the side, but the feeling of what Jen said, which is that we need to get something down so people know what should be and what shouldn't be. And we should also have a more specific, I believe, enforcement and administration piece in here in terms of what a suggested fine might be and how that might go about it and who would be responsible for doing it. And we can suggest it's the code enforcement officer. And the town will have a lot of feedback on this ordinance in terms of saying, this won't work. Maybe you could do this and suggest this instead. Or they could also just say, no, it's too much. But anyway, I would like the commission to provide something for the town to react to. So I'm going to give you guys like 3 more minutes, and then we absolutely need to open it up to the public because we've got 2 hands raised now.
But I don't think we need to, set a fine every time somebody leaves a little fertilizer on the road.
Right.
But this is to cover the really bad actors that maybe there aren't going to be any, but, that have some serious violations of what has been said here.
And we'll find those people by having other people call the town and saying that, Joe Company is not sweeping driveways.
It's more of a.
No one is going to vote for something when they don't even know the whole story. No one will vote.
It's more of a, if somebody has a history of spraying, this is a whole separate thing, but a history of doing something over and over again, and it's well known throughout the community, then there is some teeth to go after them for that. Not every tiny little incident.
Right. And I think there are a lot of people. Let's see.
Oh, you're breaking up, Carol. You might want to turn off your video just so you can.
I think if one company is not notifying people, say repeatedly, they should get a fine. That's how it, if some, like Steve said, this is not to go after every grain of fertilizer that might be on a driveway, but a company may exist that it doesn't care about this stuff, and this gives a little, power to, enforce the ordinance. But like you said, I don't see like having people spying on everyone and all that. I don't think that's the purpose of this ordinance, but I do think there are some companies that might be better than others. I'm not sure.
Well, a good example might be the animal control issue.
Right.
They don't go roaming around looking for dogs on the loose, but if they get a call, because it's against the law, they have to come out and talk to the people.
Right.
Okay. I need to stop screen sharing if I'm going to see who's on here. All right. All right. Now, Melinda, you had your hand up before and you were first before Michael. So I'd like to call on you first if you would still like to. Yes, and you would. So Dave, could you recognize Melinda so she can speak? I think.
Hello?
Yep.
Wait, we can hear you. Terrific.
Hi. I'm Melinda Anderson. I'm a small organic farm in Kennebunkport out towards Goose Rocks. And I jumped on the meeting and have caught most of it. I'm not up on all of what you folks have done, but I can tell by looking. I just printed off your draft, and there's definitely a lot of material there. And you guys have done a lot in trying to form some guidance for the town, which I truly appreciate. And I see that, you guys are struggling with how to govern it or how to, literally police it, what you would propose. And I would think, it would be possible to think about the police having some way to, step into this if there was someone who, had, not done the right thing. If the police could step in and just, be a public spokesperson to say, there has been a complaint and it is a public safety concern because, everything runs downhill and if it doesn't stay on your property, it is a public safety concern. So, like with the police, I know if someone mows their lawn and they mow the grass into the road, it would be the police's responsibility to come by and inform them that is, dangerous to a motorcyclist. So we do have quite a force of police, and I don't think we have huge issues with speed or drunk driving or, I would think that it could be a way to, get some guidance for everyone to know what is important. And, the police can share, I would think, with someone that gets a call.
I agree. I mean, it's the police that give you a warning with the dog on the beach. Or,
They're also going to do the parking. They're going to,
Right. Right.
So it doesn't necessarily, to me, mean we have to pay another person. I think we've already got overextended with, paying for more, for the short-term rentals, for having, another person on. And I think it does come down to just, helping to inform people. I think people want to do the right thing. I have a self-serve farm stand, and you wouldn't think that would be a lot, possible. Everyone told me you can't do that, but I'm 9 years in. So can't doesn't do anything. If you guys try, you would find, I think it does, get farther than can't.
I
And the
agree.
police then write a ticket?
Yeah.
Well, even a conversation.
I'm asking you that.
If a police officer comes to your door, it means something, or it used to. So I would think if a police officer came to my door and said, you just left a lot of fertilizer out in the driveway and there's a rain coming, there was, your neighbor is on a list of concern and they have reported that they noticed that. I mean, I would think that would be doable. And I don't think there's going to be tons of people that are going to be, being a menace about it. So I think it would be a place to start. And if you don't start somewhere, you're not going to get nowhere.
I agree.
Those are great suggestions. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you guys showing up. It's not easy. And, I look at what you guys have done without any consultants, or maybe I don't know that. Maybe you guys have had consultants or.
Yeah, Steve.
Good job.
Consultants.
Yeah, I mean, that is really, it looks really good. As I say, I haven't read it all, but, to think that you guys are all volunteer and you're not taking town money to figure it out and you're just coming from the right thing, I think you should continue with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, next person is Michael Dunlay. So I think we're aiming at like 3 minutes a person, Michael. And I also want to add that we are very, very interested in getting written comments, detailed written comments afterwards.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. I think the proposed requirement for companies to report specific addresses is very concerning, something I would oppose. And I think a lot of people will feel strongly that this just crosses a line with respect to basic rights to privacy, and also as well as private companies' proprietary information. As I've said all along, we're talking about tax-paying private property owners choosing to purchase widely available, deeply regulated, legal, keyword legal products and services that are professionally and safely applied. So I don't know many people who wake up in the morning and think, gee, what we really need is more government mandates that force me to report who I choose to do legal private business with. And when I fertilize my lawn a couple times a year. I mean, when I read that, I thought, what have we come to? So I'd be very wary.
I have a question, Michael, because I'm not sure. I want to make sure I understand. So how is what we're proposing different from what you folks already do for the state? Could you specifically tell me that? Because that's one of the questions that you probably heard us talk about during our discussion.
Are you addressing that to me? Who's who, folks?
Yes, Michael, I'm addressing that to you.
Yeah, I'm not a company. I'm not a commercial applicator.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah,
Never mind. We'll ask that of our next person then.
Yeah, right. So just to finish up, I'd be very wary that a big brother-like pesticide database, because in my opinion, that's what it would be, with specific addresses, could only result in some nefarious use. And I'm not saying it would purposely happen, but it's just the way things are. So there's data out there about what people purchase and where, and I think it can only result in less than the up and up, targeting certain properties, someone arbitrarily deciding that, oh, those people are buying too much services, pitting neighbor against neighbor. I just think it's the wrong direction. It's intrusive. And frankly, I think it's a huge overreach. So just to wrap up, I would say that I've had informal conversations, my own little, surveys, friends, neighbors, residents, and I am not alone in this view. And I would also say that if this goes forward to the BOS, the Board of Selectmen, I would hope and I would suspect that they would offer pretty strong pushback on this specific address provision. I think you can get all the data you want with some of those other categorizations you were mentioning earlier in the meeting. I think it's just over the top, frankly, to have the government know what I purchase and from who down to the nitty gritty of my address. So that's my view. That's all I have. Thank you for listening. So
You're very clear in your concerns. So thank you very much. Okay, moving on to Palmer.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yep.
So I think you
You're on.
wanted the question about what we report to the state first, Carol?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So Steve highlighted already, dates of application and specific addresses are not included in what we report to the state.
Okay.
Steve, you mentioned that a lot of this is driven from what other towns have proposed, towns being plural. Pretty sure what you mean is just Falmouth, because this is a similar ordinance to what Falmouth has proposed. We had a similar discussion on specific addresses, similar pushback, similar concern from homeowners, similar concern from companies sharing homeowner data, which frankly isn't our data to share. And so I also have significant concern, but I won't repeat that. I think in addition to that, you're talking about a proposal for commercial applicators to report. I understand why, because it's easier for us because we do report to the state. But when you're talking about it as a baseline and you're talking about it as a way to point to reduction in inputs, you're missing over 50% of the market. The commercial applicator market, depending on what data you choose to look at, is 30 to 40% of the market. So when you're not mandating homeowners to report their own usage, you're really missing the majority of the usage. And you're targeting the exact group of individuals who are licensed and trained to use these products. And so that also is a concern of mine. Moving down the list, the registry, Steve, that you proposed, I understand you're not a big fan of the state system, but the state system works and it's scalable. A system where a homeowner can get on a list any given day and requires applicators to check every single day and then do their own research to see if homes fall within 250 feet of that, and do that every day for every customer that they have, is incredibly burdensome. And frankly, once you're on the state's list, the burden is on the company. It's not on the homeowner. And I understand you don't like the deadline, Steve, but once you get on the registry, you're on the registry, and then the burden is on companies. So I think you're frustrated at the state's process, but the state's process is scalable and it works. Consider if every single town wrote an ordinance that was just section 6, every single company would have to look every single day in every single town to see if a new person was added to the list. That's impractical.
Well, maybe not every single day, but I mean, what if it was,
How could you not?
monthly?
How could you not? If you
Well,
can get on the list every day, I have to check every day.
Well, and maybe, maybe it's not an everyday thing. Maybe you have an opportunity every month to get on the list, or so you look once a month. Something like that.
Why not just get on it? Why not just get on it for the year and be done, or get on it forever? It's like you get on it once, you're done. And that's what the state's process is.
So they renew automatically?
Get on the state list. So moving on, I only have a couple minutes. The restrictions on fertilizer, I guess we already talked. I was going to talk about the 250 feet, so I guess we already talked about that. And all I'll say is, this is more of just a high level point. I don't know who you're really talking about, but I just want to say, like, when you're talking about fertilizer companies or applicators, and Robin, you're talking about, you're talking about these people's kids, and you don't know how much training they have. It's disheartening and demeaning to be a manager of one of these companies who spends a lot of time training these people, trying to give people great jobs, and hear the people on this commission basically trash their profession, their professionalism.
I'm not trashing your profession. I am in the business.
In a demeaning way.
Well, I'm not meaning that at all. I'm just saying, like, I've seen it. I work in the business, so I see it all the time, out in the job. I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm just saying, with hiring and et cetera, I'm sure you tell them to do that. I'm not saying that you don't. I'm just saying sometimes it gets missed, and it's not derogatory. It's just the nature of experience. And I have been in this business a long time. I've seen, a few things happen in that area. That's all I'm saying. Is just, I'm not saying you're not training people. I'm just saying it does happen. I've seen it many times. That's all. I am in the business.
Okay.
I'm not disparaging you. You might be an excellent trainer. I don't think every company is the same. So there should be a standard is all.
Okay.
Here, Michael, do you have anything else? Palmer, I'm sorry. I was looking at Michael's.
No, I think my 3 minutes are up.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. We have John also would like to speak.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm going to use a lot less than the 3 minutes allotted, but my property's on well water, and we have a neighbor that has regular applications of all these products monthly, and we like to drink our well water, and I don't think anybody would want to make tea out of a lot of the chemicals that are being applied to their lawn, and so I'm very much a proponent of the direction that this committee is headed to. Just let's take a look at how much product is being applied, where's it going, and again, we're in a situation, we're not on town water, we're on well water, so to a degree, we're consuming some of the ingredients that are being applied. So, like I said, I could go on to a couple of other points, but I won't. But I just don't like the fact that this product is being applied and running into the water we drink. That's it.
Thank you, John. We appreciate your support.
Yep.
Have a good night.
Yep.
And finally, Bob.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? All right. I just have a couple comments and a couple questions, if you'll indulge that.
We're ready. Yes.
One, I agree with Karen that this just seems unenforceable, kind of just a feel-good ordinance that we can say, look what we're doing here. I do like that a couple best practices are in here, and I think that any ordinance should focus on best practices. On Section 7, no fertilizer should remain on impermeable surfaces. No fertilizer should be applied within 24 hours of rain. Those are very important best practices, but there's so many more. Monitoring other weather conditions like temperature inversion, soil moisture, the forecast, having buffer strips, vegetative buffer strips around your wetlands, calibrating your application equipment, having rain sensors on your irrigation system. I leave work early because I'm in the golf business, and it's amazing with the rain we've had recently how many irrigation systems are still running. So a fertilizer application is made. It rains a half an inch, which is okay, but then it gets another half an inch of irrigation at the same time. So that's that. One of my questions is, it was mentioned several times that this is phase 1. And Carol mentioned that, we'll see about phase 2 after these reports come in, and we'll do an analysis on that. And I was wondering, what metrics are you going to be looking at? Is there a threshold, or what data, what numbers are you going to be looking for? How's that data going to be interpreted? Again, these are all legal applications. It's EPA registered. Assuming that every application is made legally, how would you justify, strengthening this, knowing that these have all been done legally?
Steve, you want to take a shot at that?
Well, one of the things we want to do on a long term is know whether the amount of pesticides and fertilizer being applied is decreasing in time or increasing, and different types of them, are they increasing or decreasing? So our ultimate goal is to have less synthetic things put on into the environment. So that's one of the reasons for looking at this. And another thing we want to find out is how hard it's going to be to actually collect all the data and do some analysis on it. Mm-hmm. With this Excel spreadsheet idea, whether we're going to be able to quickly make a big data archive and analyze it.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And my last question was, would it be possible, again, because these are, important products for pest control, for, protecting human health, having nice landscapes, et cetera. Is there, would there be a metric that you could envision where these products could be allowed again? Of all the ordinances in Maine, there's no metric saying we're not seeing the benefit from these bans, based on this metric, and these products are important. We need to get these back on the market. Would that be something you guys would be open to?
Well, yeah, we're going to be analyzing the data. Certainly if it turns out that there's a great health benefit for something, and then we would say, okay, I guess it's okay to apply more of that.
Yeah, I'm not clear on the question. And do you have a proposed metric, I guess, would be my question for you.
Well, I mean, like we've been saying all along, there really hasn't been any science, put out to the public that justifies this. It's a lot of anecdotes and generalities that any ordinances would be based on. So, that's why I say, I'm all for solving problems if there is, but if there isn't, again, I think it's a feel-good, unenforceable ordinance. So that's where, hey, if we're going to ban legally registered products, let's include an avenue that if we're not seeing the positive benefit.
Well, Bob, you're getting a little ahead of ourselves. This ordinance does not ban anything. So we're just looking to get a sense of what is currently happening. And even the state regulations themselves, as we have included in this ordinance, say that the goal is to use as little as possible. So that certainly is a goal of this commission, is to have folks use as little as possible. So
The state goal actually is to minimize reliance on pesticides, not minimize their use.
okay, well, if they
Tomato, potato, potato.
here's a little bit. Anyway, we hear you. I've notated what you said, and if you have anything to add, say so, and if not, we can move on.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the commission. Public section is closed. So we're at 7:30. We're obviously not quite finished. I wonder if we can go over what we sort of said folks should do. You know, we have a couple of tasks in here. And then one of the things we might want to do in terms of administration and enforcement is think more carefully about any extra detail we want to put in there and submit some things to each other by email that we can then post before the next meeting. I just want to say, we are running out of time. Today's the 13th. I believe we have to get it to the Board of Selectmen by a week from Friday. We knew this was going to be tight. So, thoughts on this? Is that a process you think we can do?
Well, I could look through it again and make some of my own revisions based on what we've heard and additions. And I can do that in the next day, send it out tomorrow morning or something.
So it seems what we haven't figured out is the
Enforcement?
enforcement and the fines. I mean, I think we should just decide that,
Well, I think that in a way, we need to talk with the town
Right.
about that. I think, was it Melinda had the idea about the policeman and, maybe we could have a discussion where we can say there will be some fine of some type, and then it's going to be determined by talking with the town exactly what that would be and the process.
Well, they do that with other ordinances, like the short-term rental. They hadn't set the fees or anything, remember? So they do that, like, the ordinance goes through and then,
Right.
the selectmen,
I think we should,
remember?
I don't think we need to decide amounts, but I think we need to have a better idea of what the process might be.
Mhm.
And I'm
Yeah.
happy to reach
I
out
agree.
to the town to get an opinion ahead of the fact.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Because they may have something we haven't thought of too.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll do that. He's gonna do an overview. Jen, you were gonna do something,
The maps and just finding something that's already been created as a way of, and I'll work with Steve on that, sort of.
Yeah.
If in fact we choose not to do the addresses and et cetera, and just do regions within our town, that may be really helpful. So that the reporting is just in, quadrant 1, 2, or 3, or whatever it works out to be, that seems logical.
I'm definitely open to that, because that is gonna concern a good number of people,
Mhm.
rightly or wrongly. So Karen, are concerned about the whole enforcement thing. I wonder if you have an idea on something you could do, something you could bring to us that would address your concern?
Well, I think that we need to talk to the town first, and we need to see how the manpower, that is required to make this work. And I certainly can't assume anything. None of us can assume what the town can and cannot do. But without that, it's an ordinance that has absolutely no teeth.
Okay. All right, I will take it. I will get started on that first thing tomorrow. Is it possible for, and Dave, if you can chime in on this, because as a tech, the tech support, excuse me, the 20th is a week from today on Monday. Is that a night that any of you guys could potentially have another meeting?
Let me look. And my question is, Karen, do you want to be involved in those conversations? Because you're very clear about your interest in ensuring that it's not a quote laughable ordinance. So I just wonder in what way you'd like to be involved, and it might go a long way toward,
I would
alleviating your own concerns about it.
I thought I was involved throughout this process, but this draft is, something that I'm working, I'm working 3 days a week. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I cannot put any effort into this. I'm sorry to say. It's a more than a full-time commitment to work where I'm working. So I could, I don't know what else I could do. Do you want me to go to the police department and ask them how they?
Well, I'm
levy
just
fines?
suggesting you be involved with Carol, that's all.
Well,
There's some conversations.
yeah.
How could I help you, Carol?
How about after I talk to them, and I imagine I'll start with, Lori and Werner, and see who else they suggest, and I will report back to you before we report back to the committee, so I can get your feedback first.
That would be helpful.
Sounds good.
And so the 20th is what you're recommending?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Monday night seems to work for a lot of us.
I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make that work.
Same time, 6:00.
Yes.
Oop.
Yep, I can do that. Yep. Yep, so far Mondays have been good, so let me confirm. Dave, do I have your email? Am I supposed to have your email? Yes.
Wait, make sure it's on the whole public TV.
Yeah.
Everybody, here's Dave's.
Oh, after midnight is fine. That sounds much smarter. And I'll loop back in the morning and with Yanina as well to see if we can do this, and I'll confirm with folks. Oh, you're there. Okay, terrific. Lucky lady. Okay. Okay, anybody else have any thoughts before we close? We have a bit more of an agenda, which we'll just move to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Seeing as we're all pretty busy right now.
I did enjoy the invasive species day. That was fun.
Yeah.
It actually was fun.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
The tree thanks us.
Maybe you can get some of those photos in the newspaper.
We did take photos.
Possibly. I did. Yeah, we have some good photos. It was Robin was, by the way, the youngest person there. So you can see how.
I'm 56, so you can tell.
We
We were good though. I thought we got a lot done.
got a heck of a lot done. So, okay, guys, thank you for your time and patience. And we'll be reporting back to one another.
Thank you, Carol. I mean, we wouldn't be a commission of any sort at all without your leadership. And I know we all haven't shown up in equal ways. So thanks to everyone who's been able to pitch in. And
Everybody does what we can. And I have to say, I feel like we're finally functioning like a commission and I say with mixed feelings, good luck in the election tomorrow, Robin, because we don't really want to lose you either. So. We'll see.
Well, I will still pull bittersweet anytime.
That's a promise. We'll take it.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Over and out.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I know.
Not a problem.
Now you guys have enough to do right this week, right?
A hard worker and all in
You know, I was thinking about that and I
this arranged because of the approvals we had to get from the
You have 5 attendees. Okay, so I'm stopping the share. Okay.